again, everyone, and welcome to another episode on Let's Talk About Us with Uche. Today, I'm going to be talking about colorism, specifically in the Black community. As usual, if you're new to my channel, please, if you're new to my podcast, please download, subscribe, share with your friends and family. And if you're new to my YouTube channel, please subscribe, like, share, and please hit that bell notification so that anytime I upload a video, you'll be the first to know. Disclaimer, this is not to insult anyone. This is not to belittle anyone. I'm not meaning to sound condescending at all. This particular episode is just my own opinion from my own observations and even my own personal experience. If you've been following my podcast, I talked about Black people, the unanimous black sheep, where I described why Black people are the easiest to hate and why, and some of the ways we perpetuate the hate without even realizing that we are. And also I did talk about, does Black lives matter, question marks, basically saying that if Black lives does matter, it's very important that we bring the same energy that we put out there, and bring it back into the Black community. So basically saying that while we're out there marching, protesting, and asking for Black equality and protesting that Black lives matter, it is extremely important that we come back to the Black community and keep the same energy. So yeah, this particular episode is going to be talking about colorism. Before we get started, I'm pretty sure most Black people are familiar with what colorism is. Colorism is basically the idea that a lighter skinned shade of a particular race is better than a darker skin. So colorism, it is on its own, it's an extension of racism. Racism basically is the idea that white is better and Black is not. So the closer you are to Black, the worse off you are, and the closer you are to white, the better off you are. And then colorism is the exact same thing, but except with people of generally the same race or ethnicity. So with that being said, colorism definitely does exist in basically every country, every race, every continent. There's also colorism in Europe, where not all white people are created equal, apparently. I don't know how familiar people are with the European history, but there's also the caste system in Europe. There's also there's a particular look that's more uppity. And I remember reading in high school that something about Irish people are not considered white enough, or Slavic people are slave. That's where the term slave came from, Slavic slave. So back then, if you wanted a slave, there's a particular look for slave, which is that Slavic look, and that was up until Europeans discovered Black people in Africa, and then they started enslaving Africans, that the whole picture of slavery changed from Slavic to Black. So basically, colorism, again, it's global. It's a pandemic of its own. I've been to India a few times, and I remember reading that India is one of the most colorist and also one of the most racist countries on the planet, which is actually very true. I remember I used to talk about this a lot to a few people, how the racism in America, even though it's bad, but this is a cute version, compared to the real hardcore racism going on out there outside America. At least here in America, people have freedom of expression. At least people can sue you, people can challenge you legally and things like that. But in other countries, some of these up and coming countries, second world countries, third world countries, where there's still racial inequality and diversity, racial diversity, that's not really an option. For example, places in India where you still have the caste system, if you're darker skinned, you're by default, you're more than likely going to die poor, because there's a lot of opportunities for you as a darker skinned person. And I'm sure a lot of people have heard about the Fair and Lovely commercials, the Fair and Lovely Indian commercials, marketing lighter skinned. I should remember there's a particular Indian commercial that went viral a few years ago. This famous actor was talking to a younger, darker skinned Indian and telling him that unless he washes his skin with this soap, that he would not get a shot at success. This is quite sad. And also, it's important for me to point out that even though a lot of us, we patronize Bollywood, it is very important to realize that Bollywood is not an accurate depiction of Indians. Again, I've been to India, and I remember a lot of the India, at least in the part of India that I went to, I was in Delhi. There are a lot of Indians that I saw in Delhi look nothing like the ones in Bollywood. They look nothing like the ones in the billboards. The ones in the billboards look super white, like Photoshop white. But realistically, when I looked around, nobody looked like that. Some of them actually look darker than me. The same thing is going on in South America, especially the northern part of South America. A lot of people actually don't know this, but there's a lot of black people in Latin America, in the Caribbeans as well, in Colombia, Venezuela, places like Brazil. Matter of fact, Brazil has the largest black population on the planet outside of Africa. So yeah, let that sink in. But when you think of Latino, Latinx people, there's a particular image that's being pumped in us towards us, as the Latinx phenotype, that mocha, mulatto, mixed look, like not too light, not too dark. But the truth is that there's a lot of black people who are Latin Americans, who are Hispanic. But these images are not shown to us because they don't conform to the norm of what is considered beautiful. And that's an extension of colorism. But for the sake of this video, I'm going to focus primarily on black people, not just black Americans, but just black people in general, black people all around the planet. Again, the reason why I'm talking about this is an extension of the former episode that I talked about, Black Lives Matter, where I was talking about how while we're out there pushing for Black Lives Matter, black equality, that is very important that we bring the same energy into our own community, because there's a lot of mess going on in black community. In the hierarchy of race, black is all the way on the bottom, white is all the way on top, and black is all the way on the bottom, and collectively we are the bottom of the barrel. So if systemic racism is tilted against us to favor the white race, and we're all the way in the bottom, it is extremely important that we don't perpetuate some of this loop, whatever it is that's keeping us in the bottom. It is extremely important that we try to look within ourselves as a community and fix each other, fix ourselves, so that while we're out there telling people to accept us and see us as humans, it is important that they also see that we see ourselves as humans. Because we could sit there talking about Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. They see the way we treat each other. Seriously, they wouldn't say it to you, but truly, they see the way we treat each other. Even at work, in our personal lives, in the media, on the internet, black people are the ones who drag other black people the most. To be honest with you, I've lived in this country for a few years now, and nobody has said anything much more hurtful to me than another black person. And this is facts. This is really facts. The non-black people, they may be subliminal with their shots, but the black people, it's like we feel entitled to those shots at our own people, because I'm black and you're black, so therefore, I've earned it. Even though we think that no one is watching, they are watching. And this is why it is very difficult for them to respect us, because they know that we don't even respect each other. So yeah, for the sake of this episode, I'm going to be talking about colorism, specifically towards the black community. I do want to say that part of this problem with colorism is subconscious bias. Subconscious bias has been pumped into our systems, our media systems, without us even realizing. Again, this is evidence of a systemically racist society. When a system is tilted against our favor, everything is done in the favor of a whiter skin. So people who watch media all the time, who watch movies, who watch the news all the time, there's a particular image that's being constantly associated with a particular look. You hear things like fair and lovely, love, light-skinned, beautiful, red bone, sensitive, things like that. And then you hear dark and masculine, dark and devious, and dark and criminal. There's always a black person on TV getting arrested or getting thrown into jail or doing something messed up on TV. So after a long while, after these things are being constantly pumped into our heads, we start to subconsciously start associating these colors, even unfortunately for our own selves, without even realizing it. I remember a few years ago, I was just casually having a conversation with my mom, and she said, just so loosely, she said something about, it is not pretty for a woman to be dark-skinned, and it's not good for a man to be lighter skinned. And that kind of definitely rubbed me the wrong way. And especially because, my mom has 3 daughters who are dark skinned, especially 2 of them are much darker. And it's really sad that a mother would say something like that. I know that she didn't mean it to hurt my sisters at all, and I'm pretty sure she wasn't thinking about them at that time. But this goes to show you how deep this is, how deep and problematic this is. I remember my mom also used to say something like, between me and my brother, whenever we're getting married, it's important that we look for somebody who is lighter skinned, preferably someone Hispanic or whiter skinned, so that our kids can come out beautiful. And it's really sad. This is coming from a black woman who has black kids. So basically, you asking, what are you trying to say? What are you trying to say, that we're not beautiful? I mean, we're black kids with black moms and black dads. Are we not beautiful enough for you? I'm pretty sure she probably wouldn't say that directly to our face, but it's not just what you say. Your kids are smart enough to absorb the subliminal. Your energy speaks a lot. And I remember back in college when I used to tutor, I remember going to tutoring this white lady, her kid, and she was saying something about, and I've heard this multiple times, she was saying something about how she doesn't like her white skin. She's always preferred biracial kids, because when black and white get together and make a baby, the baby is better looking and blah blah blah, and I feel like she was saying those things to me because she wanted to pump my head up or something like that. But that also rubbed me the wrong way. I really don't care if you don't like your white skin. I really don't care. I'm okay with my black skin. But the fact that she felt so comfortable saying something like that to me, because she thought it was going to pump my head and make me feel better about myself, that black is beautiful. But even though that you're not promoting my type of black, you're promoting a biracial type of black, which in my opinion, biracial people are not black anyway, because that's 50% white and 50% black, or 50% black or 50% of something else. And it doesn't make any sense to completely erase 50% of somebody else's genetic makeup. But that's just my opinion. But anyway, what I'm saying is, you see a lot of this narrative being painted a lot. I've also mentioned that over the years, the definition of Western beauty has definitely shifted from white, blonde hair, blue eyes, to more biracial looking. Now you see a lot of Hollywood actresses blackfishing. It's more subliminal blackfishing, but some of them that are more extreme or have been called out. But you see that, they've been blackfishing over the years. Blackfishing, for anyone who doesn't know, blackfishing is basically when a white person or a lighter skinned person is using makeup or filter to darken their skin so that they can appear more African, or at least phenotypically, their skin color appear darker, even though they have phenotypical features of their own ethnicity. So it could be a white person painting their skin to be darker, but they still have European features like the thin nose, the blue eyes, and the straight hair and things like that. The only thing that is different is just the skin color being darker. And this is quite problematic. And the reason why it's problematic for me anyway is because black people, we've always been told that we're not good enough. In literally everything black people have done in Africa and away from Africa, we've been told we're not good enough. We've had to fight so painfully hard for everything. So now we're barely getting recognized after we've cried and forced our way through the door. And now, not only are you still limiting us, you're telling us that in order for you to be black, you have to be this type of black. So as in, you can be dark skinned black as long as you look like this, or you can be black as long as you look racially ambiguous like this, or you can be dark skinned as long as you have Eurocentric features like this, like thin nose, thin lips, and this and that, things like that. And that is quite problematic because most black people don't have those kind of Eurocentric looks. Most black people, we have more Afrocentric looks. We have the big nose, the big lips, the broad face, broad shoulder, dark skinned, the 4C, West African hair. That's more common for black people. So blackfishing has been a problem for a long time. And I don't know if people notice this. People like, what's it called? Ariana Grande, she's been blackfishing for a long time. I remember she used to be in, I think Disney or Nickelodeon or one of those little shows back in the day. And she used to be much lighter skinned. She looks like a real pale white girl. Now she's looking more biracial. I was actually watching one of her music videos that she released about 2 years ago, and I'm just looking at the difference, comparing her from when she was a kid to now. The blackfishing is definitely very strong. This is to show you that the definition of beauty for what the Western world, at least America, has definitely shifted from white, blonde hair, blue eyes to biracial, racial ambiguous type of thing. And this is problematic because those people are not black. It's like, you can be black if you look like this. But the problem is that those are not black. We are still looking to be recognized. We black people, we're still fighting to be recognized. We want to be represented, not just in media, but also outside of media, in leadership, in government, in the police force, in the military. I want to see more black CEOs. I want to see more black entrepreneurs. I want to see more black doctors. I want to see more of us being represented in a positive limelight without the need to associate ourselves with any European standards. Back in Nigeria, I remember there's a study that came out that said that I think 77% of African women or Nigerian women bleach their skin. That's basically 8 out of 10, which is quite sad. And I remember when I lived in Nigeria, even though I don't live in Nigeria right now, I see a lot of people, especially women, who lighten their skin. You see these women that look much lighter skin, their husbands look darker and their kids look darker. You're wondering what the heck happened. I remember back in the day, I used to follow this Instagram page about Nigerian weddings, and I used to mention that it's really interesting how I felt like 100% of the men were dark skinned and like 90% of the women were lighter skinned. And I used to also mention, like, tease how if I didn't know anything about Nigeria, I would have automatically thought that the men in Nigeria were darker skinned and the women in Nigeria were lighter skinned, just based on that was being projected to me by that Instagram page. And also you see the same thing in Nollywood as well. Nollywood is the Nigerian version of Hollywood. You see a lot of the lead female artists are usually lighter skinned. It's very rare for you to see a dark-skinned Nigerian woman doing big in the industry. And usually when you do see her, it's because she has much undeniable talent. Like, her talent, it glows and shines up the whole room. The same thing's going on here in Hollywood as well. I see a lot of lighters. I'm not trying to sound condescending at all, but in Hollywood as well, I see a lot of lighter skinned, no talent having people, especially women, in Hollywood. A bunch of light skin, big booty, big titties, but there's no talent. But that's just because they're beautiful, apparently. Just because you have a lighter skinned, big booty, big titties, and someone gives you a role to represent the black community, which makes no sense. But hey, I understand light-skinned people that didn't choose to be light-skinned, especially the ones who are naturally light-skinned, and they need to be represented. But what I'm saying is that black people, we need to represent. We need to be represented, and we can't be represented out there if we're not representing our own. And the whole colorism thing has become so ingrained in us that it's so loosely, it's so done and said so loosely. I remember seeing so many memes on colorisms or even some derogatory remarks on colorism. Talk about tar baby. I hope my baby doesn't come out as dark as night, burned like my leftover or something like that. Or I hope my baby comes out with good hair. I've seen some of those memes about something about what you ordered and what you got. Basically, the people who try to have biracial kids and they think that their biracial kids are going to come out with blue eyes and blonde hair and curly hair, loose curl hair, but then the kid comes out as much darker skinned or darker colored eyes and more 4C hair. And this is very sad. This is very sad because these kids are being fetishized. The reason why you're having these kids is not because you genuinely care about them. You just care about what they look like so they can become your trophy kids. So you can basically display your kids and be like, yeah, well, this is my kid. Look at your kid over there looking dark as night. It's quite sad. I don't know if people are familiar with the YouTube rap battle that went viral a few months ago, I think, about these black rappers rapping. One of them was rapping about basically clowning the other rapper, saying that his daughter is going to be hard to want and his own daughter is going to be hard to get. So he's saying that his light-skinned daughter is going to be hard to get because she's light-skinned and she's beautiful and people are going to want to, want her and blah, 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 and blah. And then the other one basically saying that the other one's daughter is going to be hard to want because she's dark-skinned and, and everything negative about dark-skinned girls and, how he's going to pay something about paying $30 so she can perform oral sex on a bunch of men for free or something like that. It's quite disturbing, especially considering that these girls are 6 years old. I'm gonna try to find a link of this video so you can watch it. It's quite sad. It's very embarrassing. Again, this is how low we think of ourselves. We say these things so loosely without even realizing that these things are harming us. And just like that video went viral, everyone saw it. And this was just a few months ago before this whole Black Lives Matter thing. And everyone is seeing this, just like everyone is noticing this whole Black Lives Matter movement going on right now. How do you expect them to take us serious when we can't even take our own selves serious? You have a bunch of black men disrespecting 2 6-year-old kids that apparently don't even exist, because according to the news that came out later, that the kids don't even exist. It was supposed to be a joke or not, it doesn't matter. How do you expect them to take us serious when this is how black men, especially dark-skinned black men, because when I looked in that room, it was all dark-skinned black men. Look, this is how commonly and loosely we disrespect our own kind, just based on color alone. So you can sit there saying that Black Lives Matter, but the truth is your actions. Your actions is what speaks the loudest. Your actions, the speaking part, the hashtagging part, the picture part, the fist pump part, that's the easy part. They're actually implementing it into your own life. That's the real work. And until we're ready to work together and change this narrative, not a damn thing is going to change black people. Seriously. It's not going to go away anytime soon. We need to be very careful, even with women as well, black women. I've heard a lot of black women say something like, "Oh, I just prefer dark-skinned men because dark-skinned men are masculine." It shouldn't be dark-skinned men are masculine. It should just be men are masculine, period. Because if you're saying that dark-skinned men is masculine, you're basically implying that the masculinity is coming from the fact that he's dark. So therefore, a woman who is also dark has some masculine traits to her, which is a narrative that's been pumped for a long time. Notice this whole Black Lives Matter movement. A lot of the women who are marching, a lot of the girls who are marching for the whole Black Lives Matter, they're dark-skinned women. A lot of the mushmouth celebrities are not even out there doing anything. They're just on Instagram hashtagging Black Lives Matter, fist bump this, fist bump that, Blackout Tuesday. But you don't see a lot of these rappers on the streets. I see a lot of dark-skinned warrior black princesses out there. But the sad thing is that at the end of this whole Black Lives Matter movement wave, these mushmouth rappers are going to go back to releasing music videos with a bunch of lighter-skinned black women. So it's like, what are you fighting for, black women? You're fighting for these idiots to not even represent you. You know what I mean? It's quite sad. So we need to be careful collectively. We need to be careful with some of the things that we use to describe ourselves. Feminine, being associated with light skin. Feminine is light skin, pretty, beautiful, graceful, blah blah blah. And then dark skin is considered masculine, aggressive, strong. Because even though you're describing black men, you're also describing black women. This is why a lot of black women find it harder to get married. They find it harder to get booed up because of things like that, because of these narratives that dark skin is not attractive because dark skin is masculine. There's also a heavy amount of colorism in the LGBTQ community, just like there's a heavy amount of racism in the LGBTQ community, which me personally, I'm very surprised considering the fact that the LGBTQ community is a group of marginalized people. You know what I mean? You would think that a group of people that literally parade every year asking for equality, they would stick together, but apparently that's not the case. In the LGBTQ community, racism is huge, and colorism within the black LGBTQ is huge. Again, in the racist LGBT, the black is all the way on the bottom, and then within the black LGBT, there's colorism. As in, the darker skin you are, the less desirable you are, unless you fit a particular mold. And I blame this on pornography. I blame this on Hollywood. I blame it on the media for pumping these particular images associated with black men, basically fetishizing black men. Black men have become objects to be fetishized over. Like I asked in one of my previous episodes, what positive stereotypes do you know about black people in general, apart from the whole black men have big tools or they're good with sports or something like that? What other positive stereotype? None. Zero. That's it. Everything stereotype has something to do with physical, has something to do with sex drive, has something to do with being good in bed, and that's it. And this is why a lot of times when a lot of non-black people, they're interested in a black person, especially black men, a lot of times it ends up being sexual, because there's not a whole lot of positive image of black people out there at all. Black people were seen as lazy, we're seen as stupid, we're seen as unattractive, we're seen as deviants, criminals, the list just goes on. But there's not a whole lot of positive image. And a lot of times you see, and me, I can attest to this. A lot of times when you see a non-black person show interest in you, a lot of times you're just a fetish to them. And after a while, you start to see, yep, you were definitely a fetish for them. And I'm gonna make an episode on that, how to know if somebody is interested in you as a genuine person, or if you're a fetish to them, if they're someone of a different ethnicity or race. I'm gonna make a whole episode on that and break that down, so we don't confuse love with fetish. But yeah. Racism is a thing, and colorism is an extension of that racism, and we black people, we perpetuate this without realizing this. Again, I honestly don't blame white America too much for this, even though systemic racism is in their favor. But let's keep it real. They believe in survival of the fittest. Part of survival of the fittest is creating a system that is tilted in your favor to favor your people. So if they've created a systemically racist society that favors them and tilted away from the black race, to the point that success has a face. The whiter you are, the closer you are to success, and the further away from whiteness you are, the further away you are from success. And when you look at the black people that are given an opportunity to succeed, especially black women. As a matter of fact, a few months ago, I did like a quick research on the top 10 successful black men and black women on the planet. And I realized that the top black men, the 10 of them, out of 10 of them, about 8 of them had lighter skinned wives, racial ambiguous wives, or wives of completely, totally different ethnicities. And their kids look nothing like them, so that their blackness has definitely been erased, and the same thing too with the women, the black women. I realized that the black women, out of 10 of them, 8 of them were lighter skinned, people like Beyonce, Rihanna, these are the people that are allowed to, or at least given the most opportunity to excel in a racist society, a systemically racist society. Look at people like Beyonce, Nicki Minaj, Rihanna. We can't all be like them. And look at even the rappers, especially the dark-skinned rappers. Matter of fact, not even just the dark-skinned rappers. Look at the top black entertainers, the top black people, even outside of entertainment. A lot of them, their wives are light-skinned, racial ambiguous, biracial, white. Look at people like Kobe Bryant. Look at, the NBA players, the NFL. I remember a few months ago, I was just at work, and I just, out of curiosity, I don't watch sports, I don't watch TV, I really don't care about anything on TV. I think it's all trash. But I remember just being on Google and just typing and just looking at the most successful athletes, black athletes, and looking at their wives and girlfriends. Maybe out of the 20 that I looked at, only 3 of them had dark-skinned black women, as in women who are my skin tone or darker. A lot of them, they were white, racial ambiguous, biracial, something lighter skin. So it's like, we keep talking about this whole Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter. Do we truly believe that our Black Lives Matter? Do we truly? And what hurts the most is it's our own people. Again, going back to the whole hierarchy of racism, from white to black, collectively, black people are the bottom of the barrel, collectively. Again, if you haven't seen that episode where I talked about black people, the unanimous black sheep, basically breaking it down, why black people are some of the most disliked people on the planet, and how we perpetuate that. I'm going to add a link below, so please go check it out. But that aside, what hurts the most is the fact that us black people, we perpetuate this. We reinforce this whole narrative on our own selves without actually breaking that, going deep down into our own community and breaking down some of those barriers, some of the things that are keeping us in that loop. That is the saddest part of this whole thing. We perpetuate this. We are hurt the most by the world. And then within our own world, we hurt our own people the most. So, dear black people, Black lives will not matter until all black lives matter. I'm going to say it again. Black lives will never matter until all black lives matter. Doesn't matter what kind of black you are. Light skin black, dark skin black. Man, woman, young, old, gay, straight, bisexual, gender conforming, gender non-conforming, Christian, religious, not religious. It doesn't matter. If you're black, you're black. American black, African black, Caribbean black, Latin American black. We are all in this shit together. Seriously. And just like I explained in the previous episodes, we need to get rid of these unhealthy European standards. We really need to. These European standards were not created for us. They're created to favor the Europeans, people with the European features. They're not created for us. There's no reason why we need to keep looking up to these standards. We need to create our own standards, right? Starting with our own selves. check yourself and check people around you. Seriously, I remember a few years ago, I remember this Caribbean guy from the Virgin Islands. He's black, much darker than me actually, and he was just loosely talking to a bunch of soldiers, and he said that he would never marry a dark-skinned black woman. He may sleep with her, but he would never marry her because, they're crazy and this and this and that. Which is quite sad considering that this man, as dark as you are, I'm pretty sure that your mother is dark. And these are the same people who would go on Instagram and Facebook and post something about their mothers on Mother's Day, not so flattering pictures of their mothers, by the way. Okay, let's just keep it real. But you're going on Mother's Day and, basically blowing up everybody's timeline, talking about how your mother is strong and beautiful and blah, 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 and blah. But then you're bringing down another black woman who is potentially somebody else's mother. We need to check ourselves, check yourselves before you wreck yourself. Even me, myself, I have to catch myself, I have to check myself too, because this whole colorism thing, this whole self-bias thing is something that is so naturally ingrained in us without us even realizing how detrimental it is to ourselves. So look in the mirror, constantly check yourself before you say something derogatory to somebody just because of their skin color. Imagine if they were of a different race or skin color. I remember talking about how people are quick to make excuses for you if you have the right skin color, if you have the right looks, but then they would rebuke you much harsher for a lesser crime if you have the wrong skin color, in quotations, wrong skin color. So check yourself, before you just loosely say certain derogatory things that could be killing another black person. Check yourself, seriously, especially for people who are having a bunch of kids. Not just for yourself, but for your kids, because your kids are the future of tomorrow. Okay, when we're gone, when we're dead and gone from this planet, the kids that you're having, they're going to be the replacements. Would you want your kids to go through the same BS that you're going through right now? As a black person, I know how much it hurts, and I understand that in a world of patriarchy, I am favored more because I'm a man, So colorism doesn't really affect me as bad as it does with women, but it still does, Colorism is not synonymous to just women only. It's not just for one particular gender. We are all collectively connected, and affected by this. So if I had a kid, I wouldn't want my kid to go through half of the things that I'm going through right now. So for all the people having kids, at least for your kids, check yourself, check people around you, educate yourself, because at the end of the day, we're all black. Seriously, we're all black. Doesn't matter what kind of black you are. Doesn't matter if you speak English or not. Doesn't matter how tall you are. Doesn't matter how light-skinned you are. We are all black. And while we're out there shoving it down people's throat that our Black Lives Matter, we need to keep the same energy. Bring that same energy back home. Keep the same energy, because black lives will never matter until all black lives matter. This is the end of this episode. If you enjoyed my spirit, if you enjoyed my message, please make sure to subscribe to my podcast. Please make sure to download, like, and share. If you're new to my YouTube channel, please make sure to like, share, subscribe, and please hit that bell notification so that anytime I upload a video, you'll be the first to be notified. Please visit my website at www.letstalkaboutus.org. That's www.letstalkaboutus.org. Visit me on social media. Facebook is Let's Talk About Us with Uche. Instagram is Let's Talk with Uche. And if you want to show encouragement, support, please send me an email at letstalkwithuche@gmail.com. Thank you very much, and I'll talk to you on the next episode.